Players Pick Podcast, Picks and Perspective with Chris Johnson.
Episode 21 with my dude Charlie Robbins of Artificial Language. We drink coffee, nerd out about guitar stuff. You should listen to his music on the Players Pick Podcast playlist
where
on
was,
Spotify.
So just like enjoying what you do is like, I would say more than half the battle, because if you enjoy it, you're going to keep playing more often. You're going to, get that drive because, that's what's going to be the fuel for getting at it, just writing music, shooting videos. It's so daunting to just do it all the time. So
it's interesting. I really like the new record, by the way, the Artificial Language record. I've only listened to it probably 3 times now, but I would listen to it again on the way
still
here.
Good though.
And it's I was trying to, I'm 42. I'll be 43 this year. So
really, I honestly thought you were like maybe 30.
Oh, okay, that's cool. I appreciate that. It's the yoga.
No, I was gonna say like you're a very healthy person.
Thanks, man. Some days I actually am. But it's so I've been around for a minute, and I have just my own. The things that I hear, because I've had a couple of generations past like where you're kind of at in a way to hear like and listen for influences, and some people you start listening, you're like, oh man, they definitely listened to that record, and they loved that record, or that player or that sound or that vibe or whatever, and sometimes it's. Most of the time, I don't really find it to be a problem. Some people obviously go overboard, and they're almost trying to be or recreate that thing. That's where it starts to feel that weirdness. But the 2 things that kind of popped out at me, and I don't even know if you even listened to them, but like, and not a hard. It's not like a on the sleeve type of influence feeling, or even it'd be funny if you don't even know the band. This band, The Human Abstract.
Of course,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, I love. Victor and I. That was probably one of our main influences.
Really,
AJ is like
incredible.
Yeah, he's like one of the best there ever was, in my opinion.
Agreed.
So Human Abstract, obviously great. And I'm pretty sure everybody in the band like was at least into them at one point, to my knowledge. But Victor and I were like really rode those records a lot.
It's because I'm glad that somebody is, because the band has been defunct for so long, and I don't even know what AJ is doing anymore. Does he have another project?
He has his own his solo project.
Yes.
I don't know if it's a solo project, but it's a lot lighter, and it actually sounds really good.
Is he playing?
I know he's been doing some like gypsy jazz guitar, which is like really cool. And then this is more of like folk sounding. So it's like a complete 180, but because he's a genius, like in general, musically speaking. He's able to just really like dissect everything and make it what it is. So when you listen to it, I'm not generally into like folk or anything like that. But it has this like classical aspect to it that I'm really drawn to. Very meticulous in how it's like constructed, and I was like, wow, that's an interesting way to be able to like go and still have your mark put on there, So I think that's what he's up to, but he's obviously kept pretty quiet.
I'll definitely be searching him out and seeing what he's up to, try to update myself with that. But that Nocturne, just still to this day, I put that record on and I'm like, man, the world didn't quite hear enough of this band, and just
agree.
like there was just not enough. And I really like Midheaven too. Midheaven, even though it was a progressive kind of step and it wasn't quite as heavy, like in the mixing. I mean, there was heavy moments, but like the way the album was mixed in the elements, it felt a little lighter and more proggy, ethereal qualities to it.
If you're really into like prog, like like Steven Wilson or Opeth or something like that, it's more in that direction, I think, where it gets weird and it really takes chances.
Yeah,
which
that's a good way to say it. Yeah,
and I think that's that's admirable. And in my opinion, there's gold on that, like that whole record. A lot of people overshadow like with the whole mix thing. But if you can look past that, there's like a lot of like very interesting things that still nobody's done,
Totally. The mix, none of the album doesn't bother me exactly. It's just different. I know, I'm sure people have their gripes because this is, the modern age. Everybody has their gripes. Like, the mix should have been this way. The mix, he doesn't growl enough. Blah blah blah. It's like, but I really enjoyed that vocalist. I can't remember his name right now.
I think it was Nathan.
Nathan, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I really enjoyed. I actually contacted him after that band broke up, or after he was out of the band.
Yeah.
And I was like, my band broke up. We lost our singer. Like, it was like this moment. We messaged for a moment. He was like, yeah, like, if you wrote some new music, like we'd probably, I wouldn't want to do the old material. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But we just kind of fell out. But I just want to get back to saying thank you for including or just like wearing that influence the way that you do on the record, because to me it was. I'm glad to know that it's an actual influence too.
Yeah.
Because you do a similar thing that those guys did with those records, but it doesn't. I only know it because I love those records.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't if I didn't know those records. I would, and I just went back and heard it a little bit. I probably wouldn't put the two together exactly, other than maybe a little bit of the classical influence.
Yeah, that's pretty much like it. That's what, essentially put me on my like road to really liking the classical sound. And yeah, I mean, it's one of the best bands in my opinion that's ever been in Prague. And when people compare us, like people get like offended and stuff, I'm like, in my opinion, that's one of the best compliments you can have.
Totally.
And especially because that's like only like I guess one element, because you'll hear songs that sound nothing like that.
Sure.
Like we'll have JJ songs, or Jonathan, and he's the keyboardist, and he has his own sound. You met him before.
I believe so. Yeah.
And he has his complete own synthy sound, and then we'll make songs based off that. And that's what I think is kind of cool, is like we can start blending that stuff, and hopefully come up with something that sounds different. And then we can still kind of get our like, I guess, influence juices out a little bit too.
Sure.
Which is always fun because when you're a kid growing up, essentially that's what you want to do. You want to play music like your favorite bands.
Totally.
So like when I do these things and I just like put that little, I guess, flavor in there that people can be like, hey, this sounds like this, and I love they usually say like, but it sounds like, as twist, like its own version. You
expanded upon something.
And I always appreciate that, whether or not they're just trying to spare my feelings or not, it's still a good, thing to say, because, you also don't want to be, like you said, you're like, oh, it's too obvious.
Yeah. Well, there's like, I've had through the years, I played when I was in bands, I was primarily in Seattle, and so I was a part of the Seattle like metal scene, from like 2000 to like 2007, 2008 actually. And so there's a lot of local bands that have sprung up, and there's a couple of bands that like just when Tool wasn't putting a record out, like there was a band that was like putting out a remixed record of that, and I was like, part of me really wants to like it because I love Tool.
Yeah, if Tool's not doing it, we will.
But the fact that it's so obvious, it's so messed up. Like it's just like it's almost like you're better off doing a cover band, bro. Like it's almost like it's all good. And that was actually interesting that there's a few little moments in the vocal. What's the vocalist's name in your band?
In Shay.
So it's a couple of moments I noticed in the record that borrow from Maynard. Just little moments, and a lot of vocalists love Tool and love Maynard, and but I like that it didn't ever feel so over the top, like obvious, like. But there's little techniques. There's like even a record. I don't even know what to call it because there's like a recording technique that like Maynard uses in like Pussifer, I believe, and a couple of things, and you guys kind of touched on a little. Yeah,
Shay does like him. Victor and Shay are like I think more Perfect Circle fans than Tool fans. Yeah, which that would make sense in my experience, because like I don't really listen to either too much, but Perfect Circle had like a lot more freedom with Maynard's vocals. I think he did like interesting things like that. Like I said, I could be wrong on that. That's just from what they were telling me, because they were like, influenced by him as well. when I say Victor and Shay, it's because Victor and Shay write the vocal melodies together.
Got it.
And then also another one is Matt Bellamy from Muse. Like Victor and I like are huge because there's a classical aspect to to Muse, and that's the more operatic side of Shay, I guess. And then there's like you said, the Maynard side, where maybe creepy sounding. I don't know, it could be, but we try to blend those together and see how cool it sounds or how weird it sounds. Sometimes the weird stuff is what's cool, to our ears at least.
I didn't hear any of it necessarily as creepy to me, but that's maybe because I'm just desensitized to the vibe a little bit in a way. But I mean, you guys did a really good job on a lot of levels too, and I really like how the first song and the last song thematically, I mean, the whole album seems thematically intact.
Yeah.
But the first song and the last song lyrically tie together, and I'm always a fan of that, because when I'm getting into an album, I want to listen to an album start to finish, and if there's the possibility of the band made it cool so that when you have it on repeat,
it doesn't,
that it just cycles in on itself. You guys did that.
It was.
I'm really happy about that.
It was kind of almost a last minute thing.
Really?
I always planned it. Even on the first record, The Observer, and I guess The Observer probably has the quote-unquote more creepy stuff. It's from on the last song, and it's more of a carnival-y sounding thing, and there's creepy laughs in there. So maybe that's where I'm getting the vibe when they're talking to me about that.
Sure.
But even that song in particular, the ending song loops back into the original song, and then we wanted to do it again. It's it's not so much of to be like, oh, look what we did. It's more of just what you said was, if it's on repeat, it kind of blends into itself like that. And I'm into that sound. Some people don't like the way of albums sounding so flowy. They want cut.
Yeah. I can appreciate both. I really can. I mean, I think it's just one of the major things that if you're anywhere close to the prog genre, that we've all listened to Dream Theater. We've all seen the long drawn out themes that reoccur. And it actually is a really interesting form factor, to try to write with, because it is. Yes, it's been done before by hundreds of bands. But when you do it, it's different.
Thank you.
And I like the way you do it, especially because the obvious feeling of oh, there's a little bit of human abstract in there. There's a little bit. I can feel a little bit of this, but that's what makes a newer band, especially that I'm getting to know, exciting, because I'm like, oh, I can hear that they've listened to a wide range of things and they're influenced by what, but they're not trying to be any of those bands. So that that means that there's an originality there. That eventually those kind of initial correlations that you make end up fading into the distance. Whereas if somebody's really strong, then it's it doesn't ever really go away. To be honest, because and I end up wanting to. The allure to the sound is over with quick for me, and then I just put on the band that they remind me of. I'm like, okay, I've heard enough. This thing makes me want to listen to Tool. This band makes me want to listen to so and so.
No, I totally get
that. So
I
just drop that and go to the source. Type of thing.
No, and that's another thing with the influence is there's 6 dudes in the band, whom of which all have their own separate far off influences, and then we all have our core influences. Obviously everybody in the band loves BT Bam, and like I said, human abstract was a common thread, and just staying in touch with the what's going on around us as well too, the instrumental stuff. Obviously my solo work does that as well too. So we try and keep our past influences, and then also stay current with the influences as well too, because it's not even funny how much cool stuff's coming out.
Oh, dude.
You don't want to miss it. That's the way I see it.
Sure.
Some people would, get discouraged. Oh, there's so many good bands coming out. I'm in my opinion, that's a good thing. That either adds a fire to me, or it adds just this whole new element of hey, that looks fun. Let's try something, different like that, or blend it with ours. Because once we bring that element in there, and then plus 5 other dudes' influences, it becomes its whole new thing. And that's what kind of keeps you on your toes, I guess, from wearing yourself out, because you're just okay, let's try this one more thing. Right. Yeah. And that's what keeps you going and, you know, wanting to try, I guess, new sounds for your creative outlet, you know?
Totally. Well, let's put a pin in the new music thing. We'll come back to that. I want to ask you about like how you got started kind of playing, but through your guitar pick. I'm interested like where your relationship to guitar picks began, because that's kind of where our relationship kind of started. In a way, I think was through guitar picks. But like, if you could tell us and the listeners like what, you know, what was your first memories of a guitar pick? Who gave it to you? Like, and how did you get to play what you play now?
Okay, cool. So let's see if I could remember this. Okay, so when I started out, believe it or not, I started from Guitar Hero. So that was like my thing. So I would play that with our bassist Josh, and then our old member Jeffrey of our, you know, another band, and we'd play Guitar Hero and like spend, I would say, too much time playing it.
Sure.
Like, you know, just trying to 5-star every song. And at one point I was like, you know, every time like a new game comes out and you're so good at it, by the time the next one comes out, you're a nobody. And that's just how it is. And I hated that feeling. So I was like, you know, I should probably just play the real guitar. So then at that point, Jeffrey and Josh had already started playing guitar. So I was kind of late to the party on this. And so I believe my dad took me to this, you know, side music shop on the street. And I got like a knockoff Strat, you know, like everybody does when they first start, right?
Totally.
And it had an assortment of picks. Kind of weird now that I think about it. A triangle, huge triangle pick. I, you know, don't really see that often, obviously. An assortment of like, you know, the Fenders, the Fender mediums, and all that stuff. So I started playing it, and I wasn't very good, like, at all, actually. But it was funny because like I was like trying to keep up with Josh and Jeffrey because they were learning Crazy Train, they were learning you know, like Rain in Blood or something like that. And so I started learning it, and weirdly enough they were like really like like I guess making fun of me, you know, in a friend way, like, dude, you're not even good, like you should just give up, stick to Guitar Hero or something like that. And like this was like at the end of I think our freshman year or something like that. And I was like, whatever. So that summer I trapped myself in the room and I was like, I'm going to learn Crazy Train. Like, I'm going to learn the solo though. Like, yeah. And then when I came back to school, I showed them and they were like, what? Like, how'd you learn that? And I was like, you guys made fun of me. So I was like, I wanted to at least keep up with you guys. And they were just like, okay, well, you can be like in our band now. But they were still kind of hard on me. And, you know, eventually I kept playing music with them, and then you know, every school has like the big band, you know, and they're like the seniors in a band. Totally. And that was actually JJ, our keyboardist of Artificial Language. He had that band. It was like this metal band, you know, whatever. And for some reason they picked me out of the me, Jeffrey, and Josh to play guitar in their project. Whoa. Yeah. And I was just like, that's crazy, you know. I think it was because I went like more of a shreddy route and Josh and Jeffrey were rhythm. And so I started playing music in that band, and eventually like the members started leaving. So then I brought Jeffrey and Josh with me, and eventually we just started making our own project, which it's so weird because we've never cut and ended a band really. They've all just fused into this one. So almost in a way, my first band is kind of like Artificial Language now. We went through 5 iterations of different names, completely different genres, you know, from beginner, you know, freshman metal. I feel like freshman metal has its own sound. You know? You know what I'm saying? Yep. And so from there, like, I would just, you know, pick wise play anything. You know, I didn't really, you know, I had like a cheap guitar, and I was more about like, I guess, buying strings because I probably didn't have it set up correctly, and I probably wasn't taking care of it well enough, and the high E would break, you know, every day. So pretty much my money would go to that. When it came to picks, I would go to Guitar Center and find the ones on the floor, just whatever I can find. Really? And play them. Yeah, like I would find, and most of the time, you know, because Guitar Center has a bunch of, you know, Fenders and stuff. And Fender mediums were like all over the floor. And so I would just pick up Fender mediums and then just play guitar at Guitar Center for a bit, the good guitars, and then go home and, you know, try and play those. And weirdly enough, I didn't have like a pick choice until like, I don't know, like 4 years ago. Yeah, about. I would kind of just like play anything. And Fender mediums because like someone bought me like a huge case of it. So I was like, well, these are picks.
Using them, yeah.
I will use these.
Yeah.
And someone showed me Jazz 3s. You know, I'm
Wow.
pretty sure this is how the podcast usually goes for everybody's. They find the Jazz 3.
Similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I found the Jazz 3. I was like, wow, like I feel like this makes my notes sound thicker, you know, because the Fender mediums almost have like a slappiness to them.
Right.
And I was like, okay, cool. I kind of like this. It is a little small because I'm used to the bigger size, but you know, I kind of like the sound of it.
Yeah.
And that was the first time like I chose sound over comfortability. You know, when you first start out, it's usually like, this feels good. I don't care about the sound.
How did you find? Do you remember how you found the Jazz 3? Was it somebody else playing them, or did you found it on the floor?
I probably found it on the floor.
Like, whoa! I always find Fender mediums.
Yeah,
this thing's weird.
Yeah. Who knew? I found like one of the best picks on the floor, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just playing that for a bit, and then one of my friends, whom of which is like a gear nerd, bought like the John Petrucci not Jazz. They're like you know, his signature one that
that was a Jazz 3. It's considered a Jazz 3.
Is it considered?
It's a John Petrucci, the JP Shield.
The
one,
Shield, that's
with the little glossy tip. Yeah.
And I loved that one. So I played one pick for like 7 months.
Nice.
Yeah, like because at that point I still didn't buy picks for some reason. And yeah, it was kind of, I got used to the idea of like really stubby picks, like rounded edge, not pointy, not new, because I was so used to playing guitar with really old picks off the floor. I'm pretty sure I just like was able to train myself to get used to whatever I had.
Wow.
And that's what it was. So when people keep buying picks, I was like, well, this pick is still a piece of plastic. That's all I need. And this was at the point where like with my older band Eludria, which is pretty much like most of the members of this band, but like heavier. And I was playing with those. And then eventually I bought like a pack of Jazz 3s properly, you know, from the store.
Your first pick purchase is like 7 years after you started playing guitar or something?
Not even kidding, dude. It's like like looking back, it's kind of weird to think that, you know?
That can happen.
Because like now that like when I play these picks, like I can really feel when it's going out, you know? Mm-hmm. But you know, back then I was just kind of, you know, used to whatever I had. And what's weird is I had that pack of Jazz 3 for maybe a year or two, and that one pack lasted me until I met you.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so were you using the standard black Jazz 3s, or were you using the red ones, or the nylon, or
okay, so
Tortex? I can't
the
remember.
red ones, the red ones. But then every once in a while, I'll find a black one on the floor, you know, or at NAMM.
Did you ever notice a difference between the two of them?
Yeah, I liked. I think I liked the tone of at the time the red ones, because I would do solos a lot more. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until recently when I started writing riffs and playing riffs. And that was like a reason I started doing riffs, is because I realized I was like, I'm too much of a lead player. I was like, I noticed there's a hole in my game, and I was like, I want to act on it. So if you notice, like my videos, I've been doing more riffs. You have, yeah. And it was because I was like, all right, man, like I need to be honest with myself. I do solos a lot, and I was like, there's a hole in my game, so I want to rectify it, and everybody's gonna watch me do it. Yeah. So, you know, and I'm having fun with the riffs right now. So, and that's when I found out I need different picks for different things. Mm-hmm. So the Tortex, you know, Jazz 3, that like a black one is one I found at NAMM, or I think someone like Aristides gave me one. Okay. Is that how you say their name? I've been always saying
Aristides.
Aristides, cool. Yeah. And they gave me like one of those. It was a Tortex Jazz 3, and I was like, oh, this has a completely different sound than my red one. So then I was like, okay, I like the sound of these. And this is around the time that I met you. So when you first called, you remember when you're asking me what picks I used, and I was like, I kind of use anything, man. Yeah. And it's so funny because like at that time, like I was like, dude, I like the red ones. I like the Tortex. Like, sure. It really depends, you know. It's kind of like, if I'm playing riffs, I like the Tortex ones. If I like solos, I like the more, you know, the red ones.
The riffs, the Tortex sounds great for riffs because of that.
Snappy.
Especially, and you've got Tortex. You got Tortex Flow too now, because like the Tortex has always been my favorite. And back in the day, I started off with the the random celluloid stuff too.
Yeah.
Like, and with a random like crappy Strat copy.
Yeah.
Like that's the most funniest like very common story is like, well, first I got that, you know that tortoiseshell like like it looks like confetti.
Yeah,
it's the confetti pick. It's like the ultimate dad pick.
It is.
And it's always in a guitar case or laying around where a dad or a guitar teacher or something, and it's just like it's the thing that out of all the podcasts so far, I think like maybe half of them start with, well, the confetti Fender medium pick was the thing, and then I got a Strat copy, and it's like, dude, we all did. Like, that's crazy.
It's so cool, like how everybody gets like has like the same origin story.
Very similar, yeah.
It's so interesting, like. No one really starts out with like a JP. Like
no, I'm sure somebody did somewhere, but like
they're very lucky.
Yeah, I don't know if their story is as interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it is. I won't.
It doesn't have the grit to it like finding picks off the floor.
No, it's not the same, man. But like the Tortex, because that pick is stamped out of a sheet. Right, like it's like stamped out of a sheet, and then it's goes through a tumbling process and all this stuff, and to get to where it is, it's still it's the edges are it's the general premise is that those edges are sharp, like and then they get rounded off, but they're still sharp in comparison. When you look at the regular flow that's based off of the old Jazz Tone series, right, the 208 series. That's a molded pick. So you're injection molding, and you can create a really wicked bevel and the whole thing. Yeah. So the bevel is good for your lead because it's slippy. It'll get through the strings really nice. But there's something a little more crunchy about the Tortex.
I love it.
And that edge. So I still, if I were forced to make a pick, it would be similar. It'd say a Tortex flow for rhythm stuff, and then regular flow for like the lead stuff, and no, we can't make a pick with both that does both. It's just like not possible
unless like one side has it and you want to flip it around or something.
That would be crazy, and you'd have to be really good at flipping your pick and knowing which edge you're on.
It's a new technique we have to learn. It's a part of the...
Okay, I will say we know that I'm not saying that it can't be done.
It shouldn't be done.
It's going to be tricky if we do it.
Yeah, I could imagine that being kind of frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody could do it, Jimmy Dunlop could do it for sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because Dweezil Zappa actually is really interested in kind of something similar. He wants a try that is different gauges on each... tip and different materials though too. Okay. And so we've been kind of like talking about how would we do that?
Yeah, that's I wouldn't be able to think of it.
No, it's a question. Well, like I mean, we keep thinking about like, well, there'd be a cool idea to have like some sort of metal or kind of heavy jewelry type piece in the middle, and then like maybe slide in the tips.
Yeah. It's like the opposite of what they do with like carbon fiber. You usually put carbon fiber to make it like in the middle or something, make it lighter or something.
Carbon fiber actually might be a bad idea too. I don't know.
Did we just invent something right now?
Yeah, I mean, Dweezil's been mulling it around for days, and like there are other, like Gibson made picks for a while, and they've done a try that was just like it's like a plastic try. It's like a cheap pick, right? Yeah. But it's a plastic try that's like thin, medium, and heavy.
Yeah.
So that's been done, and there's. I think there's one or two other companies that have done some weird little funky things. I liken that idea to the people that are like, man, I wish it was easier to swap pickups in a guitar. And there's a couple of random people out, like guitar builders out there that have like tried to make these hot swappable guitar pickups.
Yeah.
So for recording and Dan Armstrong under the Ampeg moniker years ago did that for the old Ampeg guitars and basses.
Okay.
And it's like something that he created like the body is like routed out, so you can like press a button and it releases the pickup. You slide it out, you slide it different. You're like, I take it from a single coil to a humbucker. This is a hot single coil. This is a hot humbucker. Yeah. You have a stack of pickups laying off next to you. They're in these little things. It's it reminds me of that it's a really great idea, but it's like not.
It's a little impractical.
Yeah, and for it to catch on, you got to make it super easy, and like you have to buy extra shit.
I think I saw a commercial for that, or it was like an ad, but the ad was like so cheesy that like I was like, I can't take it. Like it was basically like the typical rock and roll, some guys on stage and like the lights are going on him and he's like, oh my god, I need a lead tone, and like and then he just like grabs his thing and like chucks it and then puts it on the guitar, and then I was like, man, I feel like this is like a parody video or something.
Yeah.
The concept's cool though.
And we're it's really, now that we have like Kempers and fractals and stuff like that, there's so much more tonal control with your patches. Like and you have a brand like Fluence that comes out, like Fishman's, and they're kind of, in a weird way, they're kind of as close as we get to a fractal. Not that you have the options really like that you have with a fractal, but like the high-tech quality of how they create the...
Very modern.
Yeah, very modern. I mean, it's only a matter of time before somebody does make like a fractal style pickup that just, it's got, you just load in a new IR.
I know. Oh,
you know what I mean?
It's
You're
so
like,
crazy.
You're like, I can get a JB59, a JB, you know, a JB and a 59 on my guitar right now. No, I'm switching over. I'm using the modeling for the Dimebucker right now, you know, just on this one track, and then like mid solo, I'm gonna switch from the Dimebucker to the George Lynch thing. You know, like I mean that's probably the next thing that's gonna happen, and it's gonna be tied into your fractal, and it's gonna change with your patch.
Yeah, and I can imagine like, and then you also have it like MIDI switching, so it's just you're not even doing it. It's just
right.
Yeah,
Misha Mansour will be like one of the first people that has it tied into his light rig.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. It's so crazy, like how things have changed. You know, like with changing patches, tones, straight to house is like, you know, just like that's an interesting concept that like, you know, came out of nowhere.
Did you start up with amps then?
Yeah. I mean, you know, a crate amp. You know, just like a small.
Well, that's the other common thing is a crate amp.
Yeah.
Or a PV amp.
Yeah.
Like those like two things you find
I had a crate. And then a Line 6. You know what? A lot of people hate on the Spiders. I think those are the
dope.
best bedroom guitar amp that you can have. Like,
totally.
Like starting out for like what? The one I got was like $100, and you can get like so many tones, and it's a good like way for you to try out. Like, do you like guitar? You're not breaking the bank, you know?
Right.
And there's so many different sounds you can experiment with, you know, without having to buy pedals and, you know, do all that.
Yeah, you get a taste of what delay and flanger and these other little effects that are on there that do, like, where I didn't know anything about. I had a dry PV amp that had like just like clean distortion and more distortion. I think there might have been I don't think was there a reverb on that? I don't know, but the only thing I didn't even get into pedals or effects until like truly not until I worked at Dunlop, like about 5-6 years ago, because I would just play with amps and I would just I don't know, I just like I didn't understand how to use delay, I didn't understand how to use chord, I didn't know, and every time I did it I was like, oh, it's not heavy now. I'm just about heavy. I just like want it to be crunchy as fuck and like
that's
go.
how we all are, you know.
Yeah, and so until I actually saw other people. Because at EMG, when I was working at EMG before Dunlop, I did a lot of the EMG TV sessions, and so I had to set up guitar stuff for Andy James and like, you know, Tony McAlpine and different people, and slowly over time I started realizing, when they use the delay, a lot of times it's just kind of set in the back and they click it on only for the lead. And I was like, oh, it sets it apart. Oh, okay. I got like start to like see it more. Even this is like years after I did 2 records, and I didn't never try to like do anything with effects. So I go back to saying yes, the Line 6 Spider, great place to start, right? Yeah,
and you know, I think it's probably one of the reasons I kept playing is because in a way it makes you sound better than you are with all that distortion, all the effects and stuff, and it kind of gives you that extra confidence that you need to keep playing one more day. So I appreciate the Line 6 Spider 3. In my experience, that's where the one I had. And then with pedals and stuff, as you can tell from my upbringing, I wasn't much of a gear nerd, and I'm barely, like, I would say like within the past like 6 months, barely starting to become one, you know, or not even that, you know. I guess gaining an interest towards pedals or anything like that, because like now I'm starting to like get that urge of getting an old vintage sounding amp, you know, even though I have an Axe effects and all that stuff, just I don't know, just to have one, you know, and like mess around with it and see what kind of sounds you can get out of it with just like a plain little amp. and then pickups. And it wasn't until, I joined Kiesel that I knew anything about the guitar. I realized I knew nothing until you have to build one.
Right.
It's insane how many options you have you wouldn't even think about, to my knowledge, the neck and fretboard were like the same thing, at one point I remember, and then I realized, I was like, wait, there's two separate things. And that's when I bought like my JP at the time. I was like, oh, there's two separate things, because the guitars I had beforehand were both like maple and it was like the same color. I didn't know.
Sure.
And then it wasn't until I got JP that I realized, I was like, wow, like I'm behind on these things.
Sure. What was your first Kiesel? Was that an Osiris?
Yeah, it was the Osiris with the Limba body and the flame maple top.
Yeah.
That's
amazing guitar. And
it's great.
How many do you have now?
Let's see. I have Zeus. I think like five. Five right
Sick.
now. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite right now, or which?
Okay, so I have two separate things. My Zeus is like super compact and tiny, which is one of my favorite things. When I go to practice, I can just throw it in the back of my car, no problem, and it's super light. And I love the way it looks. It's super classy. They made it perfectly, exactly how I wanted it. But then the Aries, I think, is probably the most comfortable to play. Just it feels open,
Yeah.
It's
a great design.
Yeah, it's like the quintessential like guitar. Like it feels how I wanted it. Like I used to play a lot of RGs when I went to like Guitar Center and stuff like that. And I was like, man, one of these days I want to get one. And this just feels like a refined version of, what I used to play when I was younger, like with the bevels feel great, and the cutaways super deep. I just love it. And it's, mine's an ash body as well. So it's still pretty light. And overall I honestly love all of them,
Same.
And I know that sounds like a little biased, but I mean, to be fair, like they all have their own quirks about them. They're all interesting in their own way.
Man, when you get a chance, it's like, well, it's different with Kiesels though too, in the sense that, like yourself, I had a lot of RGs back in the day. I had some S guitars from Ibanez. I was Ibanez freak for a minute, and then I switched over to was like Jackson Charvel. I had a bunch of different Jackson Charvels. Even had like a Japanese custom shop, or not, I don't know if it's considered a custom shop, but it was a 750 XL. It was only made like 2 years, like 90, 91.
Yeah.
It was built like a Les Paul, but like a shredder Les Paul, and a big arch top, and it was big thick maple cap, and love those guitars too. But you those guitars you find and you acquire, and you take them in, you accept them for what they are, and so and that's a beautiful thing too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you move into Kiesel territory, where you're like, no.
Yeah.
I gotta have the thing on the stuff, and it's gotta be over there.
Yeah.
And I want that color because like my favorite, and I'm gonna and I want the back to have the thing. You're like you get so invested. In like the thing, and when it finally when you created it and it shows up, you're like, oh god, like I really have the thing that I actually wanted. Which there's a beautiful part in both. Like you get something, you accept it for what it is, and that's beautiful too, right? Because like we all have to work through our acceptance of other people and situations in life.
That's
and
how it is.
That's great practice. But then someday you wake up and somebody goes, hey, how do you want it?
What do you want?
Yeah. And then so like my love affair with the Kiesels now is definitely just like 10 steps above with all the other relationships with guitars, because I'm like, no, that's my baby. Like
you created.
I basically feel like I birthed it in a way, even though I didn't do any of the board work. But
it's crazy because there's the aspect of ordering what you order and you think it's going to come out, but you still don't know. You've played it in your head so many times, and you're like, it's this wood, it's got to look like this, it's going to look like this, and then you get it, and in my opinion, is exceeded my expectations.
Same.
Like my Zeus, I was picturing it to look a little different, and it came out beautiful. I was like, when in my head, I was like, oh, this is going to look amazing, but this came out twice as beautiful as I thought it was.
That's a good point to bring up, because so my first two Vaders that I ordered came out exactly like I asked, or what I thought, and then except for like better on the 7-string, because it was like a burled maple, and I just didn't know what the top was gonna look like, and it just like, oh my god, that's so cool. And then when I ordered my 6 and 7-string Zeus, I'm still like new to like ordering the thing. You know, obviously, you, like, how many times do you order custom guitars like before this, right?
Yeah.
You know, and because usually it's so far out of reach. It's usually like the $5,000-$6,000 range. It's usually like 7 to 10 months. You're usually spending half your life to save for the guitar, and then you half the life waiting for the guitar, and you finally get the guitar, and you hope it's fucking right from any other builder. But in this one, I didn't know how to ask for the thing, I guess. Like, I thought I was asking for the thing I wanted.
Yeah.
And so both of them came out slightly different. But I love both of them more than what I think I would have liked the thing that I was asking for, which is a funny part where I was like, I asked, actually, this is better. I'll shut up.
Yeah, I won't say anything.
I'll shut up.
It works out because, you know, either way, you're satisfied in a different route, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just one of those things where you got to be just grateful that it's as customized as it is, you know?
Totally.
And that's what's crazy about the wood, you know? Like, you know, the ones I get are a lot of wood grain ones.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you almost have no clue because the wood grains are so vastly different.
Yeah, they're all so unique.
Yeah, if you get like a paint job, you can pretty much assume what it's going to look like. You'd be like, this, you know, paint job. But with my Zeus, like, you know how almost the whole neck is wood looking, you know, the body, and then I said match the body to the top, which is they have to stain it to match the walnut.
Right.
And I was like, I have no clue how that's going to look. I looked on Google for hours. I got like 2 pieces of wood on Google and I put them near each other to see if like stained ash next to a walnut. And I was like, I'm just going to have to wait and see how it comes out.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jeff killed it. Oh.
Yeah. He's so passionate about the whole thing. That's I mean, you've been down to the factory now too and done some videos and stuff like that. So you know the vibe because you walk through there and you're just like,
yeah,
it's way more legit in my brain now that I can see all these happy people
right,
working there and like stoked on building necks and building, you know, buffing out bodies and the whole deal. And
that's what I was telling Jeff. I was like, I really admire that because he brought me into his office and he showed me a little thing that he's working on, and I was like, it was like a side project, and I was like, I really admire that you still go out of your way to, like, you know, have a creative outlet in this. And even though like all these guitars are your creative outlet, you have another thing that you're still trying to push, and you're still trying to, because what he was showing me was like next level. And I was like, what is going on? Like, how are you doing this?
Right.
And I was like, this is like, it reminds me of like you know how musicians are. We're always just like, yeah, we have an album out, like, which is, you know, good, but you want to do better.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of guitar companies, you know, don't do that. They'll have, oh, we have this guitar, everyone loves it, let's chill out. You know, he's just like, nope, like, I gotta keep going. Like,
I mean, you can imagine growing up in
the family,
in that family, and being around the carving thing for so long, and it's great to see that he still has the passion. He loves staying ahead of the game and trying to find little things. He's like, oh, well, we could offer this to our customer. Oh, we could offer that. You know?
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so like, I don't even think like people understand like how cool this is. You know, I'm sure actually, you know, Kiesel's big enough, people get it.
Yeah, but it's still catching on in a way.
Yeah.
It's like, because it's still like one of those things where people outside of the bubble a little bit,
it's kind of a prog
they go,
almost.
But how do you try out a guitar because they don't have a dealer?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, bro, there's so many people out there that have guitars now.
Yeah.
Find one, or you know, or the odds of you liking what you roll the dice on probably pretty good. And maybe your first purchase is an in stock guitar, because you can see, you can tell what it is, and there's usually like a return policy or whatever. If it's not something like a weird thing that was in stock, and so you're like safe in your purchase, and then you know, where to how to build your next guitar. You know, type of thing.
And when they get it, I guarantee you'll love it,
dude. Yeah. Oh, and so I want to go back though. We didn't even like finish your guitar pick story. Like,
oh yeah, the whole point of this podcast.
No,
I'm so sorry,
no, dude, don't be sorry, dude. Like, this is the way podcasts go. We just talk.
Cool,
but,
that's good.
But I remember I don't know all the things I sent you. I sent you a bunch of things, but you ended up where we're at the it's Ultex regular flow 1.0.
Yeah,
is that your
1.0 and 1.5?
Okay, so you alternate between the two.
Yeah, I was trying to find one where I can just settle, but I love it. Like, even when at NAMM you gave me the 420, and I was like, why am I liking this? Like, it's so like I generally hate huge picks.
Yeah.
But it was so cool because it was literally butter.
Yeah.
And so like pretty much the whole flow line, I was like, I'm sold on it. Like lighter stuff for acoustic-y sounding things. And then, but my go-to's 1.0 to 1.5.
Got it.
And that's where I'm at with the custom one I made was the Tortex, which is the snappiness. That's what I was like, all right, because this still sounds good on my leads for sure. But now that I'm going more into riffs and stuff like that, I think I'd like to have this. So I was like, I'm going to test this out for a while. And as of right now, it's still working beautifully.
So the 1.5?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that. For probably the Tortex, 1.0 for the Ultex.
Okay. And 1.5 for Tortex.
Yeah, for Tortex. And I didn't bring up the prime tones. Those, when you sent me the ones, prime tones were my favorite actually. Because you sent me Jazz 3s, the prime tones. I would believe 1.8 they were.
Prime tone, Jazz, was it the Jazz 3 XLs?
No,
it was just a regular.
It was the tiny one.
Oh, so it's a 1.4.
Oh, 1.4, yeah. 1.4. Man, you're a genius when it comes to stuff.
No, I just remember because yeah,
that's how it is. Yeah, but you gave me that whole pack of, it was Jazz 3s, the flows. Or no, before I didn't get the flows yet. Sorry.
Right. We started with prime tone.
Prime tone, and I was like, oh, these are like Jazz 3s. I'm like, but the Ultex is interesting. I was like, and it's lasting a while too.
Yeah.
And
it had a grip and it had a bevel.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was so good. Yeah. And then you sent me the flows. I was like, this is like a bigger, almost warmer version of that.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I'm sold on the flows. And it was kind of like anything Dunlop was coming out with. I was like, I'm sold regardless. If I go backwards, I'm sold on the Jazz 3 pretty much for the rest of my life.
Sure. And
then the flows, I'm like, man. Essentially, they just like created this bubble of picks that like I can use in almost any scenario comfortably.
That's a good way of saying it, because like I keep getting asked like DMs on for the podcast, like, so what are your favorite picks? And that's why a little while ago I ended up just like I like the whole entire line. Like if you hand me a 73, I'll play with the 73 and I'll just warm up to it, and I love it. And you hand me an 88, like I'll get used to that. At 1.0, I'll jump to the 420, back to the 3.0, 2.5. That geometry just is so conducive to like feeling good about playing guitar. Like, and each thickness has its kind of own little
perks.
Perk, and realm of awesome. I mean, the one that I probably skip over the most is the 2.5.
I can see it's in that in between.
Yeah, I mean, I can play it, but like if that's the one that's laying there, I'll pick it up. But like, I'm super into 73, 88, 1.0, and 1.5. And then occasionally I end up on the 2.0 because I'll pick up a Petrucci or a Andy James or something, and that's their vibe. But then I jump to a 3 or a 420. I usually just kind of like, sorry, 2.5.
Yeah, sorry.
Like, you're the weak link here.
You're like, I might as well just go up, But
I am interested, like, out there, if there's a listener that's listening, especially right now, and the 2.5 is your jam, like, tell me about it, like, because I just haven't seen anybody land on that in a hard way yet. Like, no, 3.8's too big, 2.0's too small, 2.5 is my exact Goldilocks.
You would know, of all people, because you talk to the artists like consistently. So, I mean, that must be, now that you say it, it must be very uncommon.
Somebody out there is doing it. I just haven't met them yet. Like, I don't know, because I know like the 2.0 jumbo obviously is like Andy James's realm, and the 2.0 standard is John Petrucci. But the standard, or the 2.0 jumbo with the grip is the one that Ian Thornley from Big Wreck.
Oh, okay.
Like he tried the whole range, and he was like, oh man, that thing with the grip. And I remember what he said. He says. He was like, at first it was like so fast for him, because he's actually a Jazz 3 XL Ultex guy forever, and he was like, damn, he's like kids with guns, man, this is dangerous. He's like, I was like, what?
I love that,
because it was like he was like, I want to play the set tonight with this, but it's probably gonna like mess me up because it's too easy. Yeah, and he's like, I gotta hold back and adjust from the Jazz 3 XL, because that's what that bevel does. something about some magic in that particular bevel that like you have to kind of like work your way.
You have to adjust to it. Yeah. But once you get it, it's, you know, almost like hybrid picking in a way. Like it's one of those things you have to, once you get over the hump or the learning curve, you'll realize like this is very beneficial.
I need to do that. I'm not over the hump.
Oh no, dude, you'll get it, dude. It is weird at first, and even to that, like I'm not, you know, the best at it. But there's times where I'm like, I'm so glad like I at least know a little bit to where I can jam it out. That's
as far as like the hybrid picking, I noticed I've done podcasts with both the Polyphia guys and the Chan boys, and they both play the same pick. They both play that
the sharp
1.35. Was it? No, 1.14 sharp.
Yeah,
and they both kind of like alluded, and I hadn't thought about this. They alluded to because that tip is a little bit longer. It makes the pick feel a little longer because it's so sharp.
Yeah,
and they both kind of spoke up and said, well, that it's perfect for the hybrid picking for them because it feels like that they have more room or more space or whatever, I don't know, to make it happen. And I'm just like, and everybody is doing a great job in the world, like all the great players that I watched, everybody's got a hybrid picking part of their playing, and I'm like, man, I have missed that boat completely. I have, you know.
Yeah, it was I guess on my end it was a little easier to pick up from the classical aspect because I would do. I guess I'm not the best classical player.
Did you train though? Like,
I went to school and I guess quote unquote studied under Dr. Cooper. I guess went to school is what I would call it. But you know, to sound formal, studied under. You know,
yeah.
But and then I had to do that. He really drilled me on it, and like even. Like when I'll post videos of finger picking, like I'll look at my stuff. I'm like, I hope he doesn't see this because like it's still not perfect technique.
Yeah.
But all I did was replace one of my fingers with a pick.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I can pick it up a little bit. And then I started incorporating it into my leads, which was a lot harder. You know, to jump like wide intervals.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And just after lots of metronome work, I was able to, get it up to a decent, comfortable level. And then I realized I was like, I should have done this a while ago because it's really beneficial. Like we were saying, it's like the bevel, it's weird at first. You're like, oh, it's too slippery,
Yeah.
But then once you realize it benefits you in a way that you didn't even know, it's one of those game changers.
It makes a ton of sense to me. Just using the middle finger, even if nothing else. Like I know a few people will use the ring finger as well, and even occasionally a pinky. But I see mostly just that middle finger aiding in like string skipping and just adding. I guess part of it too is like knowing how. Figuring out how to use it with on my left hand, and is really like the thing, like because I can see the benefit, and I kind of play with it just enough to go, oh yeah, and you put a pick down, and you start playing with your fingers anyway, and you start finding patterns that are greater than just what you could do with a pick anyway. So
that's true, and like understanding the practicality of it is like a huge step because at first if you don't get it. You're not going to like really kind of understand the concept behind it and why you're doing it. Some people think it's a flash thing. Some people like have asked me like, oh, is it just because it looks cool? I was like, no, dude, like it actually like helps. It's just like there's a bit of a learning curve at first. And I always like, have my students try out, hybrid picking on certain riffs, see like, oh, does this work better for you if you play it with hybrid picking, or would you prefer to pick it? I'm never one to say there's only one way to play something, Right. I always say like everybody's different. Everybody's size hands are different. I have tiny hands. And then I'll have students that have huge hands. I'm like, you might not have to do this, you might just one little centimeter and you're 6 strings away, because your hand's so big,
True. Yeah, the geometry of the hand, and the arm, the body.
Yeah, everybody's so different. So I say like when you're learning a riff, try it out in different ways, alternate pick it, maybe do legato version of it, and then hybrid pick it, and from there fill out which one's like the most comfortable or the most practical in a sense.
And have you done much touring yet? Like I mean,
no. What's funny is like I pretty much I guess like things started happening for me at the rise of like videos kind of being, where you're at, your portfolio in a way.
Sure.
And it's just like, and that was also the part where moving out and doing school and stuff like that. So it just didn't work out in my favor because I wasn't lucky enough to be able to do it before like going to college or anything like that. And it just, the times didn't work out because a lot of people are lucky enough to get it right before college at the end of high school, and they're like, cool. Right. Once they graduate, they can try it. I started college and I was pretty adamant, especially because I had a really good relationship with my my instructor, Dr. Cooper. I really wanted to keep taking these classes to do that. So that took up a lot of time. So I started making videos, and pretty much that's how I got it. But now after this album, and I'm kind of settling down a bit, with Adina and all that, I'm going to try, the guys are going to try and get up on the road, find
cool.
a good tour partner.
Yeah.
And, and the cool thing about that is we've built up a base, at least in the meantime, on the internet, with all the songs and stuff.
You're primed. You're ready to go.
Yeah, it's fun to be able to just at least have people, wanting it, rather than you go out to nobody who wants it.
You're kind of begging for attention in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess there's bittersweetness to it. I'm bitter that I haven't done it, but a sweetness that okay, cool, it's time.
Yeah. Well, I ask that because I'm always interested in what, how do you, because you're a high functioning adult that puts out a lot of great content. You spend a lot of time indoors shredding, and putting your nose to the grindstone, doing metronome practices.
Yeah.
And the whole deal, but obviously, even though that's a major part of your life, there's a whole lot of other life that happens.
Yeah, that's true.
And how do you sustain that? Do you have a methodology to keep yourself happy and inspired? Is there a formula to your day, or a philosophical outlook that you have that you could share with us?
Yeah. So generally speaking, I try and do things that make me happy. A good amount of it, half work, and half things I enjoy. So say musically speaking, I say speaking a lot, I'll do guest solos or things that I would consider work, but then I'll make sure to put time away where I actually write things for myself, practice, and make me feel good rather than I feel like I'm just working, and then for the week wise, I have a specific day for Adina where we do our thing, and I take a break from music. That's our Mondays, which happened to me yesterday.
Cool.
And so I have a day for her. I have specific days for lessons, and then I'll have a specific day for shooting videos or content for other companies, stuff like that, and try and keep myself on a schedule. And then I run every day as well too.
Awesome. Do you just do you enjoy the running part of it?
Yeah, it's such and it's funny because I'm just listening to music when I do it too, but just taking a break from your own music and listening to music you really like, and just kind of running just very, very much clears my head,
nice.
In a way. And to the best of my abilities, try to eat healthy and drink a ton of water. The water is the thing you forget when you're writing music.
Oh my God.
It's
And you're a coffee drinker, so
yeah,
I know coffee can make me forget about water.
It'll make you forget about food.
Yeah, yeah, that too. I wish it did that. It doesn't. I smoke weed, so it does. I don't ever truly forget about food.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I mean, I don't have a specific saying or anything like that. I wish I had. It'd be cool. But I generally try and have a positive outlook on things.
Yeah.
Like I said, I try to not make this a competition. Music. It's pretty much everything I like to do, and I just have the fans watch me grow.
Yeah.
I have the mindset of I always want to learn. I want to keep going, and my followers or fans are there to kind of watch me grow, and I try and help them. I'll reply to every question I get pretty much. How do you do this? I'm like, hey, dude, I'm on the train as well, trying to get there too. I'm like, but this is what I do, so maybe this might help you,
Right. So would you say that it sounds like you are saying that a schedule, having a pretty good schedule that you adhere to 90% or more of the time probably helps keep you feeling secure about what you're up to.
Yeah.
But also keeps you on track and
exactly.
to put out the content.
Yeah. I guess one thing that I do always tell my students is the number one question I get is what do you do when you're not motivated? And I'll always say, I'm you'll never look back and say man, I'm glad I didn't practice. You'll always thank yourself for practicing. You'll look back and be I'm glad I practiced. And And once I installed that into me, like I would be sitting there and I'll be doing nothing, right? I'll be like, get up and practice, get up and write, do something musical, you know, and your future self will thank you later.
Let's move back to the players and the music. One of my favorite things too is that I'm always looking for. I mean, you and I, because we're so tuned into a lot of the new players and stuff too. Like we probably catch a lot of it, but not everybody out there that is a fan of you is catching all of it. And so I like it when a player will kind of present maybe a couple players or a couple bands or something that they listen to, that if they're not a main inspiration, they're just something that maybe isn't as well known, that we can shout out and tune people into. Either, you know, maybe it's an influence, or maybe it's just something that you just recently like can't believe that just came out, that you're like, dude, you guys might not know about this.
It's so funny because I always think about these things, but the moment I'm on the spot. Oh, well, I mean, in my opinion, they broke up now, but Native Construct released like one of my favorite, actually probably my favorite album of all time.
Native Construct.
Quiet World in 2015.
Oh, I don't even know this band.
I would definitely listen to it. It's like, in my opinion, like the best album like I've ever heard. And they broke up already, but Pohawk, you know Pohawk, right?
No.
He did a guest solo on my song Awake. So
really?
He's starting his own solo stuff. Oh, an amazing player.
Okay.
Honestly, all my buddies on Instagram, like there's just too many people to name, but if I had to say like an album, like is more of orchestration that gave me for the influence is Quiet World. Quiet World by a Native Construct.
Okay. And then what is there, like maybe one or two other?
Let's see. Well, I mean, if we're just going straight influence, my favorite band of all time, like Avenged Sevenfold and Slipknot.
Sick.
So those two together kind of crafted me to who I am. And like lately, I've been jamming Slipknot like every day because they're coming out the new album.
That's right. Is there an album that is like the defining Slipknot album for you?
Iowa, for sure.
Iowa, yeah. I mean, it's hard to not say Iowa.
Slipknot and Iowa, the first two are just like. But honestly, Subliminal Verses is great.
It's a good record too.
Just composed very well. But
I was just in the studio as they were finishing this new record with them. I got to sit there and watch Mick track some.
You're so lucky.
Overdubs. It was really cool. But that was like he's got his own like personal Jazz 3 carbon fiber Jazz 3.
I saw that. I saw a video, like he did a video about it, and I was like,
yeah,
I want to try that.
That hasn't been released, but I have a couple around. I'll send you one or something. Okay. But he actually really likes the Flow 1.0 as well.
Hey.
He's kind of like between 1.0 and 1.5, and he was like, shit.
Can you do in between?
They might well, it's funny. James Hetfield also.
Yeah, I think that's the move.
James Hetfield picked up a 1.0. Was like, I can't put this down. So they're like, he's got like a kind of a White Fang thing coming soon. But and what's the Avenged Sevenfold record?
City of Evil.
Okay.
Yeah.
But thanks for talking to me today, man.
No, dude, I really appreciate it. This was super fun. Like. Cool. Just talking about stuff that I enjoy is really a blast.
Players Pick Podcast, Picks and Perspective with Chris Johnson. Pool table.
This episode of Players Pick Podcast brought to you by our good friends at Jim Dunlop Guitar Products, Kiesel Custom Guitars, Mackie Headphones and Mixers. Sound design by Drew of the Drew. Voiceovers by the amazing Minnie Joe, and I've been your guest, Chris Johnson. Until next time.